Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Crypto Talks. My name is Phil. That's not Rob. That's Rob. No, I did it on purpose this time. You saw I paused before it. You need to know that I'm just messing around. Anyway, it's Monday, which means we're doing some TA, and Bitcoin cracked above 50K today. So, yay! People have been waiting for this for quite some time now. I was waiting for it to close the weekly candle above a certain level, which it did, and it's looking good overall. I think Rob wanted to talk about how ETH is looking pretty nice, we'll just get right into it, I think, and see where we're at. So I'm starting on the weekly here, and I just want to kind of show you our resistances that I'm actually talking about here. So this red line right here is at 48,200, somewhere like that, and it's just on the wick here, on the weekly wick over here, and we closed just ever so slightly above it. I think it was 0.21% above with the weekly, which apparently was all it needed to start the day off with a huge green candle, which is great. And so we also today moved, I'm going to go to the daily for this. We also got a move right from this up through this fib level right here, which is at, what was it, 48,540 something. This is the Binance chart, by the way, so it's probably not the same everywhere. But we are cracked through those two lines that were really close to each other. And the next level where we're kind of meeting some resistance here is this yellow line, which is 50,000, which is just a psychological level. It's not really something that has any in terms of technicals, it doesn't really have any meaningful strength behind it, but 50K is a psychological level. It's a nice even number. People tend to kind of sell off there, and you can probably see that here if I go to the hourly and just zoom in just a tad. Oh god, why do I still not learn these things? But yeah, we're kind of stuck here for a little bit, creating a bull flag, and personally I'm kind of waiting for this to kind of just go this type of stuff, maybe this, just to scare some people off, and then we go. Maybe not today, but tomorrow, who knows. But that's what I'm expecting here. I can't really say that I think it's going to crack down, because now with this 48.2K level cracked and the fib level just above it, this is now turned into support with all this volume down here, which is it's not that much volume, to be fair, but locally it's plenty enough to hold the price up for a little bit. And we do have this top right here. Let's see, we do have this top right here and all this volume down here, all this right here. So the support line for me around these two, it feels strong enough to be able to hold us close enough to 50 to break through 50 and carry on this week. That's my super fast TA on Bitcoin today. Did I miss anything, Mr. Rob, sir? Oh, something that I missed was that your microphone is not working at all.
There we go.
There you go. There we go. Perfect. Yeah. So, perfect. Comments?
No, nailed it. It's still doing this awkward thing where it's hanging around the top of the range. Nobody knows if it's a proper breakout, if it's a false breakout. And there's no way of knowing. You can't know until it shows some signs of maintaining this price point and wanting to move higher. The problem with coins that particularly volatile things like crypto is they tend not to hang around. Sometimes you wake up and it's 55K and you go, oh drats, well I was going to buy the retest, and you look at it and there's a 5-minute wick somewhere that was the retest, and nope, you missed it. It didn't hang around. So is this one of those moments? Well, it may well be. We can see, there's evidence, on-chain evidence that the ETFs are indeed scooping up all the Bitcoin that they are, or at least some of them are scooping up the Bitcoin that they are offloading, or that the people are buying. So that's great. It's fresh demand, and over time, there's only going to be one way that it goes up. It's even if there's a periods of downtrend, exactly the same as we saw over the last few weeks, they get gobbled up, very, very quickly, and we move to new highs because the supply simply doesn't exist for the price that we're trying to be maintained at. And yeah, it's a nice break. It's a decent move up, and there's not all that much left. There's relatively little historical price action up at this range. There's a couple of months of wicks and moves up into it going back to 2021, but really above us, there's just these two areas, and it could take all year to crack them. But if it takes all year to crack them, well, then that's just more Bitcoin that's been scooped up. That's just a more extreme supply shock when it does eventually hit. So it really is a matter of patience. The quicker we break, the smaller the rally will be. The longer we take to hold, the longer that we're maintained. You've got to think of the fundamental value of Bitcoin. Nobody ever knows it, but there's an idea that it exists. There's valuation models, and ultimately they all say that over time, Bitcoin increases in price. So if you just think about conceptually where those price models are, then the further in time you go, the higher those price models go. If Bitcoin's trade sideways for a year, it is very, very undersold or oversold if that price model is saying, hi, we should be 50, 70, 80, 100% higher. And the snap back to what it should be, to fundamental valuation, is the more compression you put into a spring, the more it flies, and Bitcoin's no different. So be patient, and at the moment what we're seeing is a very sustainable and not too aggressive uptrend of step up a level, step up a level, step up a level. I don't see why that shouldn't carry on at least until all-time high.
And
I mean, at that point FOMO should take over.
I'll add to this because you're actually speaking my language, sir. And so what I've been doing in the past couple of days is I've been trading some futures on this, and I've been keeping my eye on specifically the 1 hourly, because I've noticed a little bit of a pattern here, which is something that I like to see. So for example, when we went from, essentially from this range where we're going kind of sideways just before a pump, we had the pump, and then we had a small sideways move, and then we carried on, and it's been doing that the whole time. Big pump, small sideways move. You can see it going on all the way through here, and the RSI was kind of stuck up here for this entire trend up here. Then when we did correct or stop out for a while, we had a little bit of a longer downtrend like this. It's not much of a downtrend, to be fair, after something like this has happened, right? But the RSI, it managed to move all the way back down here to the the midline on the RSI, and from there we started doing this step again, up a little bit of a flag, up a little bit of a flag, and now sideways again, and the RSI corrects back down. So this is something I've been keeping my eye on the hourly, just to see if I feel like, okay, this might topple over. And I thought it would actually topple over here for various reasons, which I'm not going to get into. I was looking at like 1,000 different things, but I had a feeling right around here that we were going to kind of topple over and fail this, because we met this this previous resistance, which is I guess now support, and the fib level, and we kind of got stuck there. So I thought, okay, maybe I should close my position here and take my profits, which I did. And then once we came down and we started pumping again, I realized, okay, I closed a bit early, but I took my profits, I bought back and opened up another position way lower than I actually closed it. When you do leverage trading, a small move down is a major move, really, because of the leverage. And now we're seeing the RSI back up here. Does that mean that we have to have the RSI come all the way back down again like this, and the price coming back down like this? I mean, if it does, this is very short-term stuff, but we do have a lot of support here, so that would actually be good, especially if the RSI can come back down all the way to oversold, right? However, there is so much momentum behind this and so much positive sentiment. Bitcoin broke this. Went past 50K. I mean, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everything just blew up with like 2 minutes after it was there. Hundreds of posts, 50K, 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 50K. Everyone is talking about Bitcoin right now. And with that, I feel like we're seeing one of those, that type of thing, and maybe then up again. And that's, maybe I'm super duper wrong here. It's just with the market sentiment right now, and I think the fear and greed has moved up as well. Okay, it's 70. I'm thinking that tomorrow it's probably going to be above 70, but what you'll have to wait and see. But so far, I mean, that if this pattern continues, and if the RSI, I'm gonna remove some of this stuff. Oh gosh, why don't I just do that? And start over. But I mean, if we get to see the RSI kind of sit like this again for a while, right? We saw a massive move right there during that time, and that may very well happen. And yeah, it's not going to go to all-time high with a move like that for sure, but it's certainly going to do something. So I'm actually going to take the bars pattern just for fun, and I'm going to pull it from here actually, since that's where we took that from. And oh well, that's a line, but whatever. Okay, let's say it does that. Who knows? That's still 53K. I'm cool with that, right?
That'd be nice.
That would be nice. Not saying this is going to happen, folks, but the patterns are there. If it continues on with this pattern, just the staircase up to all-time high, sure, go for it. I'm happy. I got my bags filled now. I mean, so
even when you look at that, it's only, that's say 53, 54K. That it can take a while. That wouldn't be. This is still a fairly small move. The significance of it is that we've now broken that previous high, and in bull markets, which this is very clearly now a full-fledged bull market. There's no, we haven't broken all-time high, but it's been going up in a pretty straight line now for a year and basically a year and a half. And so when resistance is breaking bull markets, price goes up. So it may not be straight away. It may take a couple of days. It may even come back and take a significant pullback, and it takes a few weeks. But overall, the trend is now upwards, and it's this idea that the proof is there in the chart that okay, we had this pullback. There was a lot of immediate fear. Okay, is this going to be a deeper correction? Which again wouldn't really be a big deal. We see 30 and 40% pullbacks in basically every bear market of Bitcoin's history. We keep mentioning that we haven't had a 50% pullback now since 2022. Mm-hmm. It's very, very rare that Bitcoin doesn't pull back 50% at any point within a year. So yeah, we're overdue a very big correction. Now, it may be the easiest way to get that correction is just to blast us off first. Let's get us up to 70, 80K, push us up to all-time high, and then pull us all the way back to 50 from there. Now, that's really, really how to make people's trousers brown. But we don't know. There's no, if it could just simply be that if the supply shock is in place and there's just not enough Bitcoin to meet the demand, it isn't going to pull back, or it's not going to pull back for any significant amounts. We saw nearly 20%. We've seen 20% time after time after time. There you go.
What you just mentioned,
what we should expect to see is these corrections getting front ran more and more, where people start buying continually at 18, 19%, then 17, then 16, and eventually we have to go so high up that we provide room for us to have a proper decent 30 or 40% crash. And that involves basically going vertical from here. It involves a trajectory change from here. I don't think we're going to do that from all-time high. Now, who knows though? This is Bitcoin, and say we're in the last leg, sort of the final phase before a new all-time high. We know what comes next. We've seen it happen before. It would be just outrageous to think it's going to do anything different this time, because this is what Bitcoin does. It keeps doing the same thing. We know the halving's coming. We know that looser financial conditions will come further down the line. And we know that there's thousands of Bitcoin being scooped up daily that are never going to enter the market for anywhere near these prices. So it's just, I mean, it's really easy. It's not difficult. It's really not this hard, not that hard.
I mean, I would say, I remember you had a really great argument for a continued uptrend for a very long time, which is what we're looking at right now for the past, since the start of 2023. We've seen this, up, a little bit of a correction, up, a little bit of correction. We've seen this happening now, and with the ETFs out, the argument for that type of continued move with 20% corrections, 15% corrections, for me makes so much sense, right? And I know people want to argue about having like a big crash, big correction somewhere, and yes, I'm sure there's going to be one, but why do we have to have a correction like we had last pre-bull run, where we had a pump up and then a correction down, which was with the COVID thing and everything, but previous to that, or can we just continue this chugging along until it's time for a proper bear market? I'm starting to feel like, thanks to the ETFs and the mainstream starting to get into this a bit more, and it becoming more of an accepted asset class over globally, the argument for a continued trend, something like what we're looking at here, 2023, 2024 so far, for me makes more sense than having a 50% correction anytime soon. Even though of course it can happen. It's a Bitcoin, we could definitely see it.
This is it's something that routinely warn about, and the problem is that you sound like an idiot when you warn about it, because it might only happen once every 10 years. And so if you warn about it constantly, you sound stupid. But the market cannot price in forced sellers. This is something that you have to bear in mind, that people say, oh yeah, things are going to get bad. Yeah, the Chinese housing market's only collapsing and falling apart, and it's only 30% of the GDP, and that's going to have massive global ramifications on the worldwide economy. But Bitcoin can only drop so far, right? Yeah. And this is in traditional markets, we have circuit breakers. If the price drops too much too fast, the entire market halts. Nope, stop trading, sort your bots out, get your stops in place, just assess what the hell's going on here. In crypto, no, there's none of that. The market will fall until it stops falling. That's exactly what happened in March 2020. And this is the ultimate of cascading liquidations, whereby you have people getting constantly just liquidated over and over again, because people are being forced to sell their crypto onto the market at rock bottom prices because they have absolutely no choice. And we know that crypto is huge in China, as much as the Chinese government doesn't necessarily want it to be. We know there is an awful lot of Bitcoin sat in there. And we also know that, say, housing is China's biggest real estate. You look at the drop that happened in 2021, that was just China having a mining ban.
Yeah, this one right here.
That was a ban of mining. And yes, okay, the hash rate recovered, but it took a while. It took a hit because it took a while to move. That was a direct hit to the Bitcoin industry and a temporary hit, but it still caused a 50% drop. Yeah. If we get really, really bad financial conditions, which in my view, in our view, it's a matter of time. Something's going to break at some point. 50% is small. 70 to 80%, similar to what happened in COVID. Don't forget, we went down from around 12k before. If you count the top, we went down from 14k all the way back down to below 4. It was 3. It was different on every exchange, but typically around 37, 38. Yeah, Bitcoin had a 70 to 70% correction in the middle of its cycle, and it was COVID that forced that complete wipeout. After that, there was no more bearish sentiment. All the bears had sold. Everybody who was left in the market was healthy, and the market could then only go one place. So we can see the same sort of thing. But until that happens, until there's either a fundamental reason, i.e. a macro crash, or we get such an extreme bull market, the kind of euphoria which has caused bear markets in the past, well then it's unlikely that we're going to get a really extreme correction. And this is the new normal until otherwise stated.
Yeah.
And we think it's a matter of time before bad things happen, and I do think that will lead to a larger correction. But let's say that's from 70k back down to 40, back down to sort of the price that we've been. It would only be a blip on the long-term chart, and it's only people that are taking out high leverage and that are being risky traders that will be affected by it.
Right. I mean, if Bitcoin were to go back to all-time high and fail that, back to 70k, let's say, and fail that all the way back down to like say 40. Yes, let's say 40. Yeah, you're right. It's 42%.
And obviously that's not a prediction, but I'm just saying that that's a perfectly reasonable thing that we should expect to happen because it happens all the bloody time. So,
yeah. There's arguments for both for a prolonged cycle now, which I can agree with a lot of those arguments. With we're seeing a new start of a new business cycle, for example, and I mean, arguably, Bitcoin's birth until now was a business cycle, and maybe that is what a real crypto cycle is, or is it the 4-year cycle that Bitcoin always had? I can't answer that, but in 67, 65 days, something, Bitcoin will be twice as hard as gold in terms of scarcity and hardness in an asset class after the halving, which is obviously massive. But the impact of the halving, we can't predict how much of an impact that's going to have, and we've discussed this numerous times already.
That's it. We often talk about how Bitcoin is massive and hard, and we can't predict the impact.
Right. But what we can do and what we want to do with all this stuff is that we want to discuss different scenarios so that we're at least mentally prepared to figure out these different scenarios when they do happen, so we're not just completely shocked. But yes, I do want to leave it to you to check out the ETH thing, because I think you had prepared a little bit of a chart. No?
Not prepared one, but let's just go through one together.
Okay.
There's one thing I do want to point out. There's one maybe unconventional resistance that we should maybe look at, which is a $1 trillion market cap.
Oh, right.
And again, this is just another psychological level, but it is one that has been played with kind of in this sort of range a bit around it. We held it as support for a while towards the end of 2021, so something to watch for. It currently only corresponds to 51k, so
yeah,
it's just another thing that may just be directly above us. So one thing that we should mention is that although Bitcoin, if I just do Bitcoin was kind of pumped up and then faltered at this level, so had poked its head above 50k briefly, and then now it's come back down. But ETH, however, just decided to have another pump and carry on. And this is good. This is something that ETH holders, I guess, are praying for about the last 2 years. Again, keeps happening and then it keeps rolling over. But this is kind of the game of accumulation. This is that decision of, is ETH going to have a period where it outpaces Bitcoin or not? And we have this conversation regularly about the merits of ETH, because it's an interesting topic to talk about. Is ETH a dinosaur that has absolutely no relevancy, or is it somewhere in between the likes of Bitcoin and Solana, in that it was first to market and it's now a giant in and of itself, which has its own momentum, and that has institutional impacts, and I think we both agree that ETH is likely to be the next ETF, and for no other reason than that, people are going to buy it. And so I'm looking out quite a lot for evidence that ETH is going to start really outpacing Bitcoin, because that's something I want to ride into, mostly to try and get a bit more Bitcoin, because when ETH really does move, people can be very surprised by how much ETH does move relative to Bitcoin. And it's had this move today is still, absolutely tiny. Let's have a look at the Binance chart. It's still absolutely tiny, but
Mm-hmm.
we've been down at this accumulation level now since October. It keeps coming down to the same range, and then it keeps pumping, and that's on the back of what was that, September 2022. So it went down for a year, pretty much for an entire year, and now it's spent the last 6 months going sideways.
Yeah, and this is versus Bitcoin, yeah.
This is versus
just
Bitcoin.
clarifying.
So this is the kind of behavior that I want to see. I want to see it starting to, and this is another perspective, is you've got this trend line, which is it now broke significantly, but oh, look at that, it's probably going to come down there at some point. So yeah, these sort of trend lines can be redrawn however you want, which is why diagonals can be a bit hairy. But if we make that, that's now the kind of worst case trend line, and go. So even if it dropped and had one big wipeout, there's only so much I think that ETH really can drop versus Bitcoin, and it's been going down for so long. It's due a significant rally upwards, and if it doesn't get it, well, then there's a signal that the end is nigh for ETH. So we've seen this sort of pre-pump happen where it came down, it bounced very hard off the bottom of this level. This level is basically just this previous sort of range that it kept bouncing off, and it had a low. Where did it come down to? I don't even know what that red line was. Just that previous low, and then it cannoned upwards, came back down again, and it's making a higher low now. So can it make an upwards trend, which would be a really good sign that the altcoin market's actually going to wake up? Because as much as we've seen altcoins, some choice alts going up in this market, the majority of altcoins versus Bitcoin, we keep showing versus on these charts, they look worse than ETH by a long way. They just look horrendous since 2022, since the end of the bull market. These things, as every single crypto holder that's been around for a long time warned, these things will just bleed and bleed and bleed versus Bitcoin. And so you really want to look at things that have either a history of doing well versus Bitcoin, such as ETH, or you need to be looking at new things which are continually outpacing. And ETH is an interesting one because it's stuck in this now, and it's now in its third cycle, and so it made these higher lows. It made a higher low on the second, on its second cycle. Now it's in its third, and it's currently making another significantly higher low. And it's obvious that the smart contract platform is more than just, it's not just Bitcoin anymore. The smart contract platform is a complete ecosystem in and of itself, and ETH is the Bitcoin of that ecosystem.
For sure.
So if we expect the crypto market overall to grow, then don't bet against ETH, because you need ETH to succeed in order for any of these altcoins to really succeed. Because if it's built on particularly Ethereum, Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, all of those, the market cap of all of those things together, that's what solidifies and values and protects the platform. You can't have hundreds or tens or hundreds of billions of dollars of liquidity in DeFi on a protocol that's only worth $500 million. That doesn't make sense, because you're just, the amount of collateral on that system, it can't be held up by the size of the protocol. You need a giant protocol. And so we want ETH to grow. If ETH outpaces Bitcoin, well, that's good for the other smaller altcoins. If ETH isn't outpacing Bitcoin, well, then that's a sign of the altcoin market as a whole. And that's where we're at the moment, that the majority of altcoins simply are not keeping up pace with Bitcoin. And
they do, in like, when you're talking long term, they don't. But if you're talking, and I keep getting, sorry to interrupt you, but I keep getting these arguments from people that, this and that altcoin just went up this and that much, and Bitcoin only went up this much. And I'm like, yeah, congratulations, you found a pump. And then the rest of the time it's down versus Bitcoin. And what we're talking about here is the long-term perspective on how Bitcoin, generally speaking, outpaces most coins. Obviously, there are some really great coins out there that we already are invested in and that we keep talking about on the regular, that tends to outpace Bitcoin and ETH actually. But
Well,
it's a
because
high
that's
risk
it.
play.
A good coin, a good altcoin should outpace ETH. It absolutely should outpace ETH. But when there's 1,000 altcoins, if 50 of them are outpacing ETH and 950 of them are losing to ETH, well then, what does that tell you about the state of the altcoin market? It tells you that there's a few good ideas out there and the rest of it is dog shit.
Precisely.
And in a fully fledged bull market, people don't care. People buy dog shit. People love dog shit because the dog shit has now been wrapped in millions of dollars worth of marketing glitter. And so they look at this nice sparkly dog shit with its 3% circulating supply and $5 billion fully diluted valuation and go, this is the next best thing, not realizing that only 4 people use it and 3 of them are the developers. So we're not in a period of massive altcoin speculation yet. And we like to keep a very sort of grounded level, and that's why I like to look at ETH, even though it's boring. And I admit it's boring. It's been utter crap for a year and a half. And but that in itself tells a story. The fact that ETH has been boring and dull tells you something. It tells you that the market is not ready to take speculative positions on altcoins. That's it. That's all it tells. That's what it tells you. And Bitcoin dominance tells you exactly the same thing. In that we've seen this continuous staircase upwards of dominance down from a low of about 40%. We're currently at 54%, and looking like it's going to take a little step higher. And this is one of those incredibly annoying moments for people who have significant altcoin positions, where Bitcoin does decide that it's going to break out, that it's going to move. And although it might only make a 10, 15, 20% move, your altcoin goes absolutely nowhere. And so what do people do? Well, they see Bitcoin going up and up and up, and then they go, oh, screw this. They sell their altcoin, buy Bitcoin, and what happens? Bitcoin tops out, and then all of that money then shifts straight into the altcoin that they just sold, and they sold the bottom of it relative to Bitcoin. And so this is the thing about timing, is you've got to bear in mind what Bitcoin is doing, and you've got to bear in mind what ETH is doing, because these are Bitcoin and ETH are the binary star system of which the solar system of crypto sort of orbits around. And most of these coins, they're just meteors. They mean nothing in the wide in the wider view of the solar system. They are nothing. The big things are what everything rotates around. So watch them and see how they're moving and how they're interacting with each other, because that's what we need to see. And right now, Bitcoin is looking like it's taking charge again, that it wants to gain more dominance. And if it does that, then altcoins, if you're in altcoins, all you're doing, as we keep saying, you're taking additional risk and you're not getting the reward out of it. And if you're going to take that additional risk with crypto, you can see from this, this chart, it really does tell the truth. Look at the amount of times and the duration when massive drops of Bitcoin dominance actually happen. This one was December 2020 to May 2021, period of 20 weeks. And that was a long one. This one was gradual, altcoins sort of mini market for a year throughout 2020. Bitcoin was slow. Bitcoin was boring. What was Bitcoin doing? Oh, it was gearing up to completely melt everyone's faces. And altcoins had this nice period in the middle of the year where Bitcoin basically traded sideways after the pump, after the COVID crash. It pumped back up, and then it just went, okay, am I a real asset or not? And in the meantime, altcoins had a bit of a run, but it wasn't sustainable. And so you've got to think, what are you doing with altcoins? Are you trying to make dollars? Are you trying to make Bitcoin? If you're trying to make dollars, well, again, it's about timing. If you pick the right timing, then you can just throw a dartboard at any with names of altcoins, and wherever it lands, you buy that altcoin. Great, you make money. If you pick the wrong timing, a lot of these alts will at some point have a 50, 60, 70, 80% drop. And if you pick bad timing and you buy on FOMO and you don't buy something that's got a decent fundamental value for the broader cycle, yeah, you're screwed.
Usually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, I know there's going to be stories with people saying, well, I bought this thing and I made 40,000%. Yes.
And it was about timing. It was
And
all about luck at
you
the end
got
of the day.
lucky, son.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. Perfectly
yeah.
agree.
So the amount of stories I've got about where terrible timing messed me up, and I should be a millionaire multiple times over with the shoulda, woulda, couldas, and the people that you see on Instagram, TikTok that go, yeah, sweet, I made $5 million trading crypto, like they are the exceptions. A few people get in these something that's tiny. It makes they put way more than they should do. Quite honestly, most of them. If you've got $5,000 and you go all in on some Binance Smart Chain shitcoin and it pumps 50,000%, don't tell me that you're an intelligent investor. Congratulations, but don't go saying this is. Don't be saying this is what you should be doing, because the majority of people who did exactly what you did lost everything because you took it off them. Because for everybody that wins, someone's got to lose.
Yeah, that's trading or investing in a nutshell. For you to win, someone has to lose. End of story.
Yeah, it's a zero-sum game.
Yeah, and I'd like to just, now that we're on the subject of we haven't talked about Solana for a while in terms of doing TA on it, but there is actually some interesting stuff. And so obviously this is Solana from the all-time high all the way down to the bottom, and then we've moved up. I haven't checked my fib levels on this for a while, but there we go. This top out on Solana at 127 and the bounce at 79 line up perfectly with 2 fib levels. And this is one of the big reasons to why I like fib levels so much. They work, okay? I mean, just look at the bounces down here. Obviously, we failed that, but still, we're sitting in the ranges here. And we kept talking about it. I think for the entirety of 2023, we were talking about ranges and between fib levels for Bitcoin. And we were nailing it every single time. If you watched us then, you know that we were pretty much nailing every week. But if like we said, if Bitcoin breaks 50K and starts, moving up towards the all-time high area, Solana is not stopping here. Same way as ETH is not gonna stop here either. It's going to try to get up to probably this at least 3,500 for ETH. But for Solana, Solana is, for me, like I full disclosure, I don't own any ETH anymore. I don't. I put it all into Solana, and I'm happy I did, because obviously, look at that. And I did it on the back of fundamentals. The fundamentals that I think are more important, and maybe long term that's incorrect, but for now it's done me good. But I think the way that Solana has now failed the fib level and then bounced on it pretty obviously, we can certainly expect Solana to carry on up to this fib level back to 127 and try to get through this around. I think this is on the weekly close right here, which is 136 something. And if it breaks that, it's like, okay, there's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll for Solana, but it's not much stopping it after that. You know what I mean? And if Bitcoin pulls it on its way up, then
for a bit of context, maybe just switch this to the linear chart just to see how far Solana really does still have to go.
Yeah, it does have quite a bit to go.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't usually use linear charts because it messes with my eyes. It just seems wrong. But you're absolutely right. Like, you can get your view can get skewed, which is why I tend to just measure, the move that needs to happen, which is 141% from here, which means that's a lot. How much money has to go in there? So
because that's the thing to remember about the linear chart is that it's the percentage moves that are consistent all the way down, and so something that lost us so much, like as Solana did, 95%.
yeah,
It stretches the logarithmic scale to the point that now it looks like Solana only has a little bit of a way to go. It doesn't. It's got $200. It's still
I mean,
what is it? It's still below 50% of its all-time high.
Yeah.
By a decent, reasonable.
You can actually measure exactly how long it is. 58.5%. From its all-time high.
And there's a similar percentage for ETH actually back to its all-time high.
So
it's the race is on. Which one's going to break its all-time high first? And well, Solana will do again. And this is something to bear in mind. Actually, is market cap. Maybe we can just have a look at the Solana market cap chart.
We can't. Do you have it open?
Just type Sol.
Yeah. I know. I will.
It'll show. I didn't have it.
You already had it.
No.
Sol. The market cap.
There you go.
Let's go see it. There we go.
I mean, and then again, put it back to linear, and you'll see it's.
There we go.
Ooh.
So cute.
It's cute. So it's about 2/3 of the way in terms of market cap, and I think this is something to bear in mind that Solana, when it launched, it had a very small circulating supply. It dumped those tokens into 2021. There was several big unlocks, and that was one reason actually that really put me off Solana was the release schedule. I remember watching a Coin Bureau video of it and him saying something along the lines of, this has got some of the worst tokenomics and release schedules I've ever seen in a token. And ultimately that's why it dropped 95%, because it had terrible tokenomics at the time. What it was the fundamentals and the backers, the fact that FTX Alameda didn't have the best outcome, but they were still absolute giants that heavily backed Solana. Of course it was going to succeed. Of course it also had terrible tokenomics. So what happens when all those tokens were released? They got dumped onto the market and we dropped a hell of a lot.
But at the same time as the bear market started as well, which is like the worst timing ever.
Yeah. But we had this decent period, this basin of flat basin of accumulation, and among that, the fundamentals continue to grow. So this is where you can look at that and you can judge and say, okay, is this now fundamentally more valuable than it was 2 years ago when it was 10, 15, 20 times the price? That's what you have to look at, because a lot of coins, a lot of things that people are holding on to, they're just the same as they were 3 years ago or 4 years ago. There's no real progression that's happened. And even if there is progression, well, has there been something else that's come in and stolen the show? And ETH is a perfect example of that, whereby, yes, there has been progression, of course there has. But now, ETH's roadmap includes hopefully getting somewhere in 5 years that Solana already is at. It's just that Solana doesn't have the fundamentals from a age, history, total value locked, and just the fact that ETH is proven over time, and that is something that can't be underestimated, because people talk about speed and how fast they are and how cheap the transactions are. If you're moving $1 million and you can do it for $20 in fees in 30 seconds, that is free and instantaneous in the real world.
I don't think the argument for Solana is that. I think the argument for Solana is stuff like Jupiter. You're able to actually trade on DeFi like instantaneously, click. Yeah, which is something ETH just can't do, and doing it on an L2 is just complex as heck. I mean, imagine trying to explain to my mom how to get around on Polygon using ETH and all these things. It's just the whole space is not there yet.
Yeah,
let's be
honest.
You
say that, but I've never actually had that as a problem, because if you think about it, you always buy crypto via an exchange. So I just withdraw direct to Polygon. I think I only used the Polygon to ETH bridge once when it first came out. And since then, I just withdraw via an exchange. So Polygon works great. It's still not as nice as Solana. Radium is just nicer to use than, say, Uniswap.
Radium is nice, right? Did you use Jupiter yet? Like actually
No, I
use it.
haven't. No, I haven't
Yeah.
used it yet.
I did a couple of trades there just to see how it felt, to kind of click around, do some stuff. Yeah, Radium is nice. It's about the same as Radium. I just like it. You can do futures and stuff like that. So it's cool. I like it. Not gonna shill it, but it's a good platform to use. To be fair.
Refer a link in the description.
Yeah, I don't think they have any. To be honest.
No, they don't.
Would be
no, it's a DEX, so everyone.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense
to use it.
Anyway, I think we need to start rounding off because
pretty much
it is my fiance's birthday today, and yeah, I should probably go and eat some cake with my new tooth that I just fixed today. But yeah, everybody, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow because we're doing Macro Tuesday, and we'll see what we talk about because I don't think we've figured that out yet. To be fair.
We'll figure it out. We'll
figure it out. We always figure it out, sort of. But yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram too, please. We do need some more movement there, so we can spread our word and get some more people to come in and hang out, and join the Discord. You know the deal. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.
Bye.